I'm going to start wiring up the LEDs. Solderless LEDs are a little bit different than the LEDs that have to be soldered, where on those at each end you have a wire that goes back to the driver, a positive and a negative. On this, you start the end with this right here. It's called a solderless plug, and then on the end that goes to the driver, you have this, which is two wires, positive and negative, that go back to the driver. So what you need is you need to have, basically you'll put your plug in first, and then you'll weave back and forth through your LEDs that you want on the same driver from positive to negative. So I'm going to start doing that, and kind of how I've got my LEDs, my heat sinks laid out is when I get to the cool whites, they actually, well, all the LEDs connect through all the heat sinks. So I've kind of got to play with it, but the way I've got it set up is right now how it would go into the tank. These would flip over, and we're looking, this right here would be the left side of the tank, and far over here would be the right. So I'm going to just start laying them out and getting them all into sync and go from there. Okay, I know this is the part of the video you should be seeing my heat sinks and seeing me wire them, like I said in the previous shot. But after I downloaded the videos and started editing them to put on YouTube, I noticed that the videos weren't very good. In the part of the heat sinks are black, the wire's black, and by it being a small area, as I was trying to hold on to the LED and put the wire in, you couldn't see what I was doing. So therefore, I didn't feel like it would have been something somebody would have wanted to watch, putting it on YouTube. You can't see what I'm doing, and therefore there's no use of watching it. So what I thought I'd do is, even though my LED build is already complete, I had a few spare LEDs and wires. So I'll do a little shot here showing how it was done. It's actually very easy. The first thing I want to point out though is I didn't do this on the video, so this gives me the opportunity now. Okay, if you look on here, you can see that there's a negative and there's a positive on each LED. So when you're wiring them, you need to make sure that the positive is going to the negative and the negative is going to the positive. If you wire a positive to a positive, the LEDs will not work. How these work is they're in a loop pattern. So you're plugging in one wire, but there's a negative and a positive on that wire. On this end, at the very end of your LED, there'll be the plug. The plug, all it is a wire that loops, so it takes your negative or positive and loops it back around to the other side, back to your negative or positive. So what it's doing, it's basically taking that chain and looping it back around to go back the other way. If this was a soldered LED, you would solder to here and here, and then to this. So that wire would go to there, that one would go to the next LED. And then when you get to the end, this would go to your driver, and this one would go to your driver. Create the close connection. So, now, how the wiring works, if you can see on there, right in the middle of the white, there's a little nub that sticks up. So therefore, once you take your LED and that wire can only go in one way. If I would try to take this wire and put it in the other way, it will not go in. So therefore, you can only plug that wire in one way. And again, you can see that that's the positive side I have plugged that into. So now I'll take my other LED and if you've wired them correctly, this is what you should have. You should have your negative going to your positive. And then you just continue that until you've wired all of that LED that's going to one driver together. These are 6-inch wires on rapid LEDs. They have multiple lengths of wires. I believe it goes from 2-inch, 4-inch, and 6-inch. So depending on how far your LEDs are going to be apart, you can pick that size of wire. What I found is having a little bit of extra wire helps, because I can take the extra wire, and if an LED was here, I could wrap that around that LED, and then the wires going into that LED, say that LED was on a different string for a different driver, you could have that wire going in and holding this piece of wire down. I hope this helps. If you have any comments or questions, just message me and I'll try to help, either by pictures or explaining it in words. Sorry about the footage on the wiring part being bad. These are pretty easy to wire up. Wires on the power cord. There's a black, there's a white, black's negative, white's positive, and then there's a green. You can't really see it, it's covered back in the back there, but that's a ground. In this situation, it's not needed. Over here, there's a blue and there's a brown. Blue is negative, brown is positive. So, just gonna strip these a little bit longer, so I have more for the wire nut to connect onto. And there you go. Wired up, ready to be plugged in. And probably what I'll do is, just so these can't be pulled out at some point, I'll probably go in and wrap some electrical tape right around there, and I think I'll go in and do that right now. And there you go. And that just basically ensures that for whatever reason you accidentally pull on this cord a little bit much and you don't realize one of these nuts come loose, that your power supply is still kind of intact. So I'll go in and do that to the other four and get those all finished up. Okay, I'm kind of switching gears here. I've still got one driver to wire up, but I'm actually needing to get some more wire nuts. These wire nuts that they sent, they're waterproof ones. By me having a glass cover on the top of my tank, these aren't really necessary, and I prefer not to use them. I need to get some more wire. These are the wires that's coming from my controller. They ain't long enough. They're not long enough. Here's the wires that go from my LEDs to my driver. Probably also need a little bit longer ones on there. And then the same with my fans. These are kind of the wires from my fans, so I'll probably have to splice those. What I'll kind of have is a three-way splice right here, so I'll need to elongate those to be able to connect all those systems together. So bottom line is I need a little bit more wire. Then I need some wire nuts that aren't waterproof ones, but after waiting so long for this, I'm kind of a little bit anxious about getting it turned on and seeing my stuff on and working. So what I'm going to do now is hook up my multimeter, and the way you do that is basically what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to hook this guy into, in between the driver and the LEDs. So positive will go on the driver's side, and then the negative or positive on the LEDs will go on here. So I'll get that wired up, and I'm just kind of using the electrical tape to keep stuff from coming apart. So I'll get this wired up, and then we'll take a look and see if the lights light up. Okay, so I've got everything hooked up, got my multimeter on at the right setting, got my LEDs on, so as I plug in the driver, the moonlight should come on, if I did everything right. That's the lowest setting. And right now it's running at about 220 milliamps. These are bright white, so they could even go up to the 1300, which are what my bright whites will be. So let's that would be 1300. So very bright. I'll be seeing stars for like the rest of the day. But I'm going to turn this back down to the 350. Okay, 350. There's the moonlights. So that's what they look like. And now we'll get on to the other controllers. So as you can see, they worked good, nice and bright. But I've got to go get that other stuff, like I was saying, before I can check the others, or before I go in and check the others. But I'll show you what that looks like later. One thing you should probably do while you, as you're adjusting your SVR dial and testing that the lights work, is, for me, I've got 5 different drivers, and it'd probably be a really bad thing, for instance, if I took one of the drivers for the bright whites and I put it on for like the blues or the yellows, or a different color, because some of those are going to be running at like 800 milliamps instead of the 1300, so I can blow those lights. So it's probably best to take like a Sharpie and just write on here what the light what color of lights it's for, so when you take it and start hooking everything up to your actual hood, you've already got that done. Because me, I can't I have everything already wired and then just put it in my hood, it's going to take some time where I have to go, install pieces into my hood, then get the right lengths of wire and connect everything over there. So I would suggest doing that, just writing it on there. Okay, these are the natural whites. Our neutrals are the same as the cool whites. They can be 1300. So right now I'm at 200 milliamps. So we'll take those up. So I'm not taking them all the way to the full 1300, just right under at 1250. So that's the neutrals. So we'll unplug that and mark that. Okay, this is the first set of bright whites. Really, you shouldn't have to adjust these. They are actually supposed to already be, forgot to turn on my multimeter first. They should already be set at the 1300 milliamps, but I'm still plugging them in more or less to make sure that they're working and make sure it's set at 13. This is actually at 13.5. If I could see my deal, I want to turn that back down where it's just under. So not a lot of adjustment there, but it's more or less to make sure that they're working and make sure that it's set at the right ampage. So it looks good. We'll unplug it and move to the next one. Okay, it was the same thing. It was 1350 also. So I just turned it down just a little bit, but everything looks good on there. They're all working. So I'll unplug it again and do the last set, which will be the royal blues, and get this part of it wrapped up so we can move on. Probably do the fans next. But man, you're talking about seeing stars. These lights are so bright that you just see stars after they've been on. But okay, so here's the royal blues. Okay, those are showing 180 milliamps. Royal blues are supposed to be between 8 to 900. So we'll turn it up to about 850. And for any reason, if these are just too much, once I get them on the tank, each channel on my controller can be, the intensities can be adjusted on the controller. So if I get them on there and the blues are too much, I can start, taking them down. So if it needs only be 50%, then I can do that right there on the controller. And probably when I put everything on for the first time anyways, I'll have it only be about, maybe around, somewhere around 50%. So when you add new lights on it, you don't want to have them full power right at first, because you'll get a burst of algae outbreak in your tank, and then you'll be upset that you're fighting algae now after putting on new lights. So always start off lower if you can, and then slowly adjust them. And I've also heard on reefs that if you put your lights on too high at first, you can actually bleach your corals. So I'm not exactly for sure I don't know what that is, but basically it's not good for the corals that you have in your tank. So always start off a little bit lower and adjust upwards. Okay, so now I'm going to take time to put all these little lenses on. It basically focuses the light a little bit more. I'm going to put it on all the LEDs except for the ones that are my moonlights. And the moonlights you want to kind of spread out a little bit more and not be so concentrated. Got all the lenses on. There was a couple lenses that were giving me trouble. They didn't want to stay on, or I shouldn't say the lens, because I could go to another LED and the lens would snap on. So is that actual LED. I even tried several lenses on those LEDs and it still wouldn't take. So what I did is I got my glue gun and I just put a couple very small drops on the edges and then put it on the LED, trying to be extra careful not to actually touch the LED itself with the glue, just the outer part that the lens sets on. So I'm not the best. No, I don't know the best way to handle that when they don't set on there, besides maybe doing something like that. But I did that. I hope it was right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my LEDs over. I'll probably have to take off the wires that connect the heats, the 12-inch wires at the ends that go from heatsink to heatsink. But I'm going to flip it over, install my fans, and then that's pretty much the last step until I get over to my fish tank with the canopy. So I'll get these unplugged and flip it over. Here's the stealth fans I've got, or that's what they're called, stealth fans. Basically what I've got is I've got a bolt, a little nut, a compression washer, and then just a regular washer. On my heat sinks right here and right here, it's got a little rail, and you get that nut or that washers up under that, and you can just slide them in there, and that's pretty much it. Then I just use a little socket and pretty much just hand tighten them, just so they're not sliding around, which they won't. Plus, when the fan's on, if they're semi-tight, they won't rattle. So, a couple different sizes. I just got the basic size that was the option to add to the heat sinks. And then I'll find my connector and I'll give them a little test before I wire them all together. I also got a fourth one, an extra one, to go on my 30-gallon tank to help cool that. At some point I'll probably upgrade to LEDs too on that. Okay, looks like they all work, so we're pretty much good here. The next part is moving these in to the tank and getting everything wired and set up there.